Welcome to the thisAbility Adventures podcast. I'm Andrea Anderson.
And I'm Chip Dodd from Team thisAbility. So here we are, the race Ramble for the Adventure Racing World Championships 2024 Ecuador. Huairasinchi. Was a crazy race. Thankfully, Doug from AR Watch is here to facilitate the conversation. We've got Caitlin and David here with us, and then Andrea is actively on a Zoom call with Women of AR, and she's going to join us in like 20 minutes or so. So, Doug, like from a dot watch standpoint, like how was this race? Like we were out there just doing our thing, and you were trying to make sense of what we were doing.
It was definitely difficult, but I want to first of all start by thanking all the people that were out there in Dot Watch land that were following along on thisAbility's page, on AR Dot Watch's page. We saw an amazing like spike of viewership during this race that has unprecedented. I was getting 40,000 views in the days, which is insane. So that's a lot. Big shout out to ARWS for reposting of our stuff and putting it out there. And then, I think you guys coming on and doing the live interview with me pre-race, I didn't see very many teams that were doing that. So getting you guys on there to talk about kind of what your thought process was going into this, I think was super important for people at home. And then like I had your chart, your go by of what you thought you were going to do if everything was great, what that day looked like. So first of all, I want to say I think the fact that Andrea is going to be a little bit late today because she is in high demand to be on another podcast because of this speaks to, where you guys are as a racing team. And what I want to start with in this is like the four of you, I feel like have just finally clicked. And it looks like this is a team that is the world is now on notice. I mean, you guys did what you planned to do in this race. David, I know you talked about that you wanted to be in the top 20. And I would say that other than them changing the course and not letting you guys go past that first cutoff, that's the only thing that I think really may have kept you from being in the top 20. And where you finished like 27th overall, right?
I think it was 28th, 27th or 28th.
I
Not
think it
sure.
moved to 28 for some reason. Nobody's
Not figured that out why.
Well, and listen, 28th in the world in a stacked field of the best in the world and on a really hard course. So I don't want to talk about it. I want to get you guys' perspective because I saw pictures and stuff, but tell me, like, talk about the race start and kind of how that played out because everybody was kind of together, and then all of a sudden it was like the ant bed had been kicked.
Honestly, it was the coolest start I've ever been a part of. I felt like I was on the Tour de France because we start with like this, police escort out of the start gate, and we're just like all in this big peloton together, just like jockeying, like who's gonna get to the front. They're like, it's not a race, it's not a race yet. Like, don't worry. Only like the captain needs to be up front. Like he's gonna go get the maps. But like and like they're like, oh, it's just gonna be easy pace. But like the police started moving and like that peloton started moving and it started stretching out. But it was so cool going through Cuenca, the old city, and you felt like you were in like this amazing race. You were. And it just like it felt had gravitas to it. It was really cool.
Yeah, it looked like the city embraced you guys huge with the opening parade was amazing and like you had been there before, but for Caitlin and Chip, like what was that like being in that city and just having it kind of like all come out for you guys and for this race?
Yeah, the crowd support was really cool. You could tell the people of the city knew this was happening, and it was a big deal. For that city at the time. So it was really cool at the beginning of the race, and also the pre-race activities leading up to it, just to see the crowds come out and kind of cheer us on, especially kind of in that prologue event when we were, riding through the city to get the maps. It was a really cool feeling to the start of the race.
And Chip, you've been at a couple of world championships now. Like how did this kind of compare to like the start and the experience of being there?
I guess we should first compare it to all other races. Like I think World Championship stands out. This would be our what third, right? Because we did Africa, we did Paraguay, and then now Ecuador. And the embracing of the culture, like the flag ceremony and the pomp and circumstance and all of that. That's way different than a normal race where it could just be nobody knows what's happening, and then all of a sudden these people come in and start the race. So if anybody's thinking about doing worlds, yes, the race is harder and longer, but that whole pomp and circumstance leading up to it is like pretty amazing. And I think like half the race is the stuff before and after the race, like half the experience is before and after the race. And then during the race, it's like a normal race. I mean, yeah, you're up against people across the world and it's the world championship. So there's a little bit higher stakes. But I would highly suggest anybody that has done a few expeditions sign up for a World Series. I'm sorry, World Championships, because it really takes the experience to that next level.
Yeah, the pageantry that I saw and got to witness just it seemed amazing. And like it's funny because I'm wearing my Ironman World Championship visor that someone gave me because I haven't been there. I've done the half course on the same area and like so you think about being in those footsteps. And I think a lot of people at home are thinking, wow, there's no way I could do this. And, I think that that used to be the mindset of disability, of like, holy crap, I don't think we can do this. And now here you are, you know, finishing the full course that you were allotted at the World Championship race, which guys, that is an accomplishment in itself, right? Especially with this course, is being able to finish that course well under time, in the time that you guys thought you would, and just to be able to do that. So they started with this prologue, and I think what dot watchers don't understand is, we're used to getting maps the night before a race, having a lot of time with the maps, knowing what you're going to do in this first leg and whatever. But you guys did not get the maps until the prologue, right?
Yeah. Yeah, basically
And then
all
EA
racers,
along the way, right?
yeah, nobody knew where they were going or where they were ending. I mean, we just had no idea until the very beginning. I mean, again, rewind the clock to the gear check-in. We had no idea we were using Jumars. Like we had no idea that we're repelling and Jumaring all this stuff. So everybody's kind of freaking out a little bit, and we're testing out the gear and trying to get it right. And then, we launch off the start and we have no maps. But I mean, obviously we know we're starting in Cuenca, but we don't really know that we're ending in Cuenca. I think we might, but we're not sure.
You're like, I don't know.
Right. And
They
so
told us
and
we were going
then
to be busts back. We had
Yeah,
no idea.
we thought it was a linear course, and we were
we
going
thought it
to
was a
lose
linear
that.
course. We thought we'd be bussed back. And they like literally had like a piece of luggage. They said, hey, pack all your crap in this luggage, and that way, because you're going to be bussed back, you'll have some dry clothes and some a past Chip fought a future Chip and put some Diet Coke and some other goodies in my bag. But it ended up being a complete loop that we did. But I guess the main thing is it's really interesting to see how the teams did it. We did the whole Tour de France prologue thing, and then the team captains were up front. And like David said, the truck was moving pretty fast. So we were huffing and puffing, keeping up with the peloton, trying to get to our maps. And then they hand you your maps, and it's like, go. And so you have a choice. Do we stop and we lay out the maps and pull out the marker and we're starting to like highlight our course and all that stuff, or do we just grab the maps and go? And so we decided, because David's got better eyesight than I do, he's like, let's just go. Like, let's just put them on the map board. We'll figure it out later. There's gonna be plenty of time pushing our bikes uphill, and we'll figure out the route. So we left out of the gate quick. So if you notice, our dot left pretty early, and then all of a sudden, all the top teams are passing us. 30 minutes later. as they caught us because they planned out their route. But I think it worked out. I mean, I feel like our route choice was pretty good. There may have been other choices, but it may not have saved more than 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah, and I didn't see a lot of really inventive tracks by anybody really in that first leg of the race. I think it was more people getting used to the elevation up and down and that, right? Like David, I see you going, whew. I mean,
My chest hurts just thinking about it.
I just know like it was funny because I kept having to remind myself that the maps were in meters and not feet. So like the topo lines where, we're used to looking at it here and it's in feet and you're like, oh, those topo lines aren't bad, whatever. And then you're like, wait a second, those are in meters. So that's 30 feet for every topo line. And you guys' maps were, probably much higher because they've got to get you across stuff. How David did that, like play into like this first leg for you guys?
So I was regretting not going earlier and getting acclimatized, not gonna lie, because those hills, those mountains, I mean, we're going up, to whatever, 11,000 feet or whatever. And these hills are steep. Like they don't have snow there, so they just make their roads as steep as they want to. Chip's like, I don't think my car could get up this thing. Like it is just steep. So I'm like huffing and puffing and I'm feeling it and I'm breathing and I'm just thinking, man, I should have come earlier to acclimatize. I should have worked out more. Um, and that first leg, there was a lot of pushing the bike, not gonna lie. There was some bombing some hills, which was fun. But we were pushing it. Like we weren't overdoing it, but we weren't sandbagging like, oh, let's take it slow. Because we knew we wanted to make that river cutoff by 6 p.m. So we didn't want to be slow.
Right.
And we kept going along, and it was kind of cool. There was a lot of teams. We were in and amongst a lot of teams as we were going, which was kind of neat. But I think we did pretty good that first leg, actually. We felt good when we got to the transition area. It's actually
Right.
funny, we didn't realize on the maps the transition areas weren't marked. They were just marked as another CP. So we just had numbers. So we had 12, 13, 14. And so like we got 12, now we're going to go to 13, right? So we're going to 13 and we show up there and that's the TA. We're
And
like,
you're like,
oh,
oh,
this was the TA. That's when we realized that the numbers that don't have instructions with it, that don't have a picture of what we're supposed to take a picture of, that's a TA.
yeah,
We
okay.
just discovered that when we got there.
Well, and Caitlin, you've done a lot of races that have elevation. Like, how did this elevation compare?
Yeah. Well, yeah, the first leg was definitely a wake up call. I mean, we're going uphill immediately. And, within, I don't know, 30 minutes of race starts, we're off our bikes pushing up a hill. So I think that was just kind of a prelude to what the rest of the race would look like.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, as David said, we were pushing that first leg because we wanted to make all the cuts, right? We definitely wanted to be full course. So we didn't want to leave anything out there on the course if we didn't make a cut. So it was, it was definitely tough, especially it was hot. It was hot the first day too. So just getting used to the heat, the elevation, the altitude, all of that right off the bat. It was tough, but overall, I think our team did well. It was a nice surprise pulling into the TA. I think we still thought we had a couple hours to go because I think that the fast time was like 7.5 hours. The slow time was like around, I don't know, 11 or so. So we were thinking we'd be towards the end of that. So when we pulled into the TA, we were like on cloud nine, like, whoa, we're already here. And we hit the fast time, I think, like right on the button. I think it was like
Yep.
7 hours and
7.5
33
hours.
minutes.
Yep.
Yeah, we were like, man, that was awesome. So we were pretty pumped, I think, going into the first TA. So even though that first leg was pretty tough, a little bit fast and furious, I think we pulled into the first TA like in high spirits just because we were already ahead of our time that we thought, we were going to finish in. So we already knew that, oh, we've already got some margin to make that first cut. So it was good.
And it's funny because, I got lucky and Andrea Bekdash was amazing. And she made the ARWS Hall of Fame for being a volunteer at these races, but she was also a field reporter for AR Dot Watch. and she got you guys into the TA. And that's got to feel good to like get somewhere and then know somebody, right? Like, and have that positive. I think Andrea talks about all the time, like when that camera is in front of her and she thinks about all the other people on the other side. And it was funny, Kayla, because you asked about the Auburn game. So I was like, as soon as I got the video, I'm checking my score and trying to give it back to her as quickly as I can. But then you
Yeah.
guys are already gone.
Yeah.
So like,
Well, she let me know at the next train.
I did. I made sure she let you know. I was like, I hate to tell her this,
I know.
but they did
I
lose
know.
that game.
Yeah, that was funny. No, that was cool. Yeah, we enjoyed that. And yeah, it is neat to pull into a TA and see people see friendly faces. That's always a high point, especially after coming off a rough leg. So that was fun.
Yeah. And you guys came into that, and I knew you were ahead of time because I knew what your estimated thoughts were of going into this. And so, Chip, I mean, you guys have this, pieced out pretty strongly of like where you expect to be. So how does that strengthen, your mental place of where you're at going into this next stage?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple different ways of doing the planning, and one is like, what do you think that you can possibly do, and then what do you think is the minimum amount of push that you can do to make it to the cutoffs? And I'm pretty sure, Andrea is more of the logistics person, so she's the one that builds the spreadsheet, and I think she built the spreadsheet in such a way that this is the minimum amount we think we can do on each leg to meet the cutoffs. So really the goal was to beat the cutoffs. And I know there was a fast time and a slow time. And I think that we significantly beat the time that we were expecting. And so that was good. But then of course it crosses your mind, maybe the race director didn't do the right thing and it could change. And so there's the uncertainty of the race. But you're like, you look around, like Safat and Team 400 are not there either. So we are not with the top teams, but we're in front of our friends, that are also basically equally matched to our skills. And so we're like, okay, so we are where we should be or where we wanted to be. We're just a little bit in front of our friends. We're behind the top teams, and it felt really good. It felt like hey, maybe we got it right this time on our estimates. But I think because of the cutoffs, and this race had some very, very hard cutoffs that were like, if you don't make this, you are definitely short coursed. So there was a sense of urgency, no matter how good we felt. We felt like we got to keep going. Like if we stop and get something, it's like, let's just get a Coke and go. There's no like sitting down and pulling out the Mountain House meals and making a jet boil and like none of that. It was like we've got to go, 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 go until we got through the paddle section, I think was the main cutoff that we were trying to meet. If I remember correctly, and I don't know, Dave,
Yeah.
you have to correct me, but I think it was like Wednesday at 5 o'clock or something. We had a
I
big
think the
cutoff that
first
we had to
main
make.
cutoff, the first main cutoff was 6 p.m.
6 p.m. on Sunday.
On Sunday, which was TA3 basically, or TA2. And you had to be out of TA2 by 6 p.m. in order to be able to get that whole paddle, the north, and then continue over.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you guys made it into TA2. You were in TA2 at 1 p.m. on Sunday. So, I was like, hell yeah, they could take a nap. They can, do everything. But
that's what we
let's not
thought.
skip ahead, though.
Oh my
Let's talk
gosh.
about this trek first, because I know that's going to be a big point of contention. But I want to talk about this trek because for those of us at home, that's an entire race for most people, right? Like that was a 40, I think about 45-mile rate trek with 15,000 feet of elevation gain.
And what you can't put in elevation is how crappy the trail is, right? You can't put
that's
this
what we don't
rock
know.
and mud and slide and this and that and oh my gosh.
It was rough. Were the trails, I mean, I'm picturing like Skyline Drive, here and going up the Massanutten, and I'm picturing that. Like, put that into perspective for people at home.
So a portion of it was on like gravel roads. So just a gravel road, that's cool. You're going up and down, you can move pretty quickly on that. A portion of it was literally they had just like dug a pipeline through the mountains. You know, like no switchback, just straight up, straight down. Just you're just following a pipeline that's all muddy and like at some point it was so steep we had to like go away from it into the woods and come back to it to get up it. I mean, so it's just like a straight line. And then a portion of it is on like horrible, horrible trails that are like all muddy and rocky and uneven and up and down and everything like that. So it was a mix of all different terrains, but a portion of that was like really slow going.
And really up and down, right? I mean, like there was a
So
lot of
much.
elevation up and down, it looked like, because there was never like where you're just like walking on a ridge line, for long, super long periods of time. It was like going up and over these things, right?
Yeah, a lot of it, like David said, was pipeline. So the pipeline is looking at what's the most efficient route for a pipe, which is not zigzag, switchbacks. It's like basically pipes go straight. So if it goes straight
Yeah,
up or straight down, like literally, there's some parts of it that it was so straight up that then the trail bushwhacks around to get to the top of the pipeline. So
holy cow.
yeah,
Yeah, that's not fun.
no, let's get
And
in here.
so and then you have to also you're battling all day, right? So you're battling the heat. And then what was it like at night? Because like how does that kind of play into things too, where you're trying to battle heat all day, Caitlin, and then at night you're trying to keep your body warmer because now it's going down.
Yeah, the temperature actually wasn't that bad that first day. I mean, it was definitely warm during the day. And at night it did cool off, but not to the point where I would say we were cold. I would say that first night, that's typically the worst night for me personally, because it's like your body's just now getting back into race mode. It's used to sleeping at night. You're training it not to sleep, right? So that's like the night I typically kind of zonk out a little bit. So that first night was a little rough, especially as we went deeper into the night, because we had already been trekking for a long time. We were starting to get hungry, and actually it was hilarious because towards the end of that night, we ran into this like little shack selling like cokes and chips like on the side of the road at like 4 a.m. And it was like this oasis in the desert, right? Because we were kind of like running out of food, and we were like zonked out, and we were tired from trekking for so long. So that was like a much needed quick stop to get
You're
food.
not seeing very many of those in this place, right? Because it's
No, we hadn't
out
seen
there.
any up to that point. And this was like a 4 a.m. This guy was like open, like he knew that racers were coming
Got to
through.
make some money.
Yeah, exactly. So that was like that definitely saved us, gave us some renewed energy to continue on the trek for the next day. But there was so the good thing about the trek is there was a trail. Sometimes you get on these treks and you're bushwhacking, right? Because there's no trail, and that's really slow. So there was a trail, and it was steep. I would say in aggregate, yeah, there was a lot of elevation gain over that trek. But yeah, for the most part though, we moved pretty quickly. That whole leg. I don't think we really stopped a whole lot. We were pretty steady, right? I think, and that was kind of the goal of our entire race is let's be steady, right? Let's minimize the stops. Let's just, minimize our zero moving time, and let's just try to constantly move forward. And so that's what we did. And so, at night it really wasn't that bad. The more difficult elements to deal with was the heat. And the next day, like it got hot, right? And towards the end of that trek, we were ready to get to that TA. I mean, the last couple hours of that trek was really warm, and we were feeling it by that time.
Yeah.
So when we finally rolled into that TA, we were hot, we were tired, we were happy to be there, and we thought we were going to get a break. I mean, we were like, hell yeah,
Little
we're
did
like,
you know.
we're
Yeah.
5 hours early. We're gonna eat. We're gonna take a little nap, maybe. I thought we had a good 2 hours at the TA, but that ended up not being the case.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Which was unfortunate, I'm sure. But
yeah.
hey, I want to welcome Andrea. I don't know what side you're on the actual recording, but Andrea, hi.
Yeah, thanks. I'm not sure what you've covered already, but I was thinking that trek leg, Yeah, we were mostly on trails, but wasn't that the one where we kind of missed a turn and we ended up at a waterfall and then we
Oh
scaled
yeah,
the
let's talk about
side
that.
of the
Yeah.
mountainside and
Yeah,
then we bushwhacked for probably at least half an hour, like in this sheer vertical cliff, but we're like climbing amongst the vegetation and
Oh
it was
no.
like roots and stuff and it that was not probably the intended route right there.
But all the top teams went that way as well. It's so
Did they?
funny. Yeah,
Yeah.
they did. I looked at the trackers. They all went that way. We saw the correct route, but it didn't look right with the topo according to our map. So we didn't think it was the correct route. So we kept going. And then when we were there, like, well, it looks like the other teams went this way and we
Yeah.
went this way.
And
And
there was a couple teams with us. There
and
was
they
like
went
two or
too.
three teams. And so we all
Yeah.
committed to just like, I mean, that was like straight up the darn mountain, like through the crap, right? Through the shit. And
And there was
Yeah.
at
was
least portions of it. There were at least portions of it where no other team had gone. Like I
Yeah,
know that
I
there
kind of
were
went off
some that
trail a
we
little bit.
did, but there was also some that we just did our own
Was
thing.
that early on in that leg?
It was.
Okay, so hold on.
It goes like by a big loop, and then
Hold
we
on. I'm gonna
like
show you. I'm gonna show you my screen.
It was kind
And
of as the
I
sun
think it's
was setting, right?
just
Like
getting
right
dark.
there.
It was just getting
Yeah,
dark.
right there. Yeah, you see it. You're right on it.
yeah,
We were
because this
supposed to take. Yeah,
you're
that's
supposed to
it.
go this way,
Yeah,
and
it doesn't
you
look
guys
as
took.
bad as it was because it was bad.
It was bad.
It was
Good,
really
David,
thick.
David, you did a great job, like groundhogging through that area.
brute
Like,
force it. But you know what? As tough as that was, I was having fun. I was like, that was fun.
I
Uh,
wasn't. I was hating that part.
Me neither.
I just
it was
wanted to
rough.
get to the trail.
You're like, do I need to take the map?
Oh God.
there was no
Uh,
looking at a map at that point. It was like we're just going
It
up.
was go straight up. It was
Just go
straight
up.
it was so
up.
steep, like as you're walking, your feet are falling through holes. Like it wasn't
Oh
like
my
there was
God.
ground below you. We were like literally crawling through the vegetation.
Well, that
Wow.
same leg, there was a section of the trail, which was the trail, which was too steep and muddy to stay on the
Yeah.
trail. So we purposely bushwhacked around because it was a mess. But
Crap.
it was a very steep race. Has that already been said?
Yes. Yeah,
Very
we were
steep.
talking
Yeah, we're
about
talking
like,
about that.
this trek leg had half the elevation of Everest. So like just this trek
No
leg,
wonder.
right? So yeah, when
Yeah.
you think about that, I tried to put it in perspective for people who were not watching at home because like it's really hard to think about that, right? Because like we're used to, here and it's not that crazy. I mean, you can stand at the bottom and look at the top and you're like, oh, okay. Well, there, like you stand at the bottom, you're not really seeing the top, like seeing
It's just a
it.
lot.
And
What's
nobody's
also
seen
cool
from
is
sea level to Everest.
Yes.
Nobody's seen that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like the amount of elevation change was massive in this race.
Yeah.
and we went up and over the Andes to get down into the Amazon, and that's why it wasn't so cold at night because we started feeling it get warmer as we started going further and further, and we should have known what was coming, but like, oh, this is nice and comfortable. It's not so cold. We're going into the Amazon. And then like the sun comes out and like bam, it is hot. And I was not
Yeah.
prepared for it. I was in long sleeves, I was in long pants. I mean I overheated. I really did. That end of that leg killed me. I even when I got to that TA and the team's like, we got to get on the boat, and I was like sitting there shaking. I was like, I hadn't eaten, I had overheated, and I was like, guys, I can't, like I can't, like I'm just
Is
shaking.
that
And then
so at that
Caitlin's
point,
like,
how much
you just got to get in the water, just get
yeah,
in the water, then you can sleep somewhere else. Just get in the water.
how much sleep had you guys had at this point through those
None.
first two legs?
Nothing.
None.
Well, so it had been one night. It had been one night, and we hadn't gotten any sleep. I think, but more importantly, we were just tired from the physical exertion. We just went 15,000 feet. It was hot. That's what we were tired from. And like David said, we showed up at the TA, and we were overheated, hot. David, hadn't eaten anything. We mentally, well, and physically, I think we were looking forward to a break at that point, but we just had to keep going.
Yeah, because then get to the end of this leg, and they change the cutoff times from 6 p.m. to 2 p.m., which would have only given you 45 minutes to get everything that you needed to get done and get out and get on the water, right? Like did you have to be out of the TA, or did you have to be started by that point?
It was real fuzzy, Chip up there was kind of the lowdown, and I think he just happened to ask him, like, "Hey,
Yeah, I did.
when do we have, or
Yeah.
or David did, when do we got to get on the water?" They're kind of like, "Oh, well, around 2:30, but maybe around 2." It was kind of just like, we're about to stop this because we don't want teams on the water at night, kind of thing. So we kind of just got the impression that we didn't want to take our chances with the race making a sudden safety call, right?
But then they still had a lot of teams that were on the water at night, because only
well, we didn't realize that. So when we got to the TA, it appeared, just by looking at the bins, it looked like most of the teams had already been out of there. So like, we were getting the impression that we must be one of the last teams to get here. We really thought that. At least I did.
I was so disappointed. I mean, that was the lowest point in my entire race, was getting on that water after that TA. I thought we were like in 50th or 60th place.
Yeah, we thought we were like in 50th or 60th place. We thought that most of the teams had already gone out there, and that they were making the decision to make the cut because there was only a few teams left. They were like, "Oh my God, there must only be a few teams left. Everyone else must have already gone. We must be one of the last guys, standing. So that must be why they're enforcing this 2 or 2:30 cutoff or whatever." So yeah, we were kind of disappointed because we thought we had just kicked some ass, in the first 2 legs.
which you had, because only a quarter of the team actually got to do that northern route on the river, and I'll pull it up here for everyone to see at home.
Yeah, we didn't realize that. We thought most of the teams had already gotten on the water. Somehow we got behind. We didn't know. We were kind of confused.
We thought Elks had passed us.
We just didn't. I just assumed that the only reason there must be, moving the cutoff up is because most of the teams have already gone through, right?
So for those of you at home who are looking at the tracker here, down here at the bottom in this orange dot is TA2, where you had to be, and the original cutoff was 6 p.m. They moved it up to 2 p.m. because you had to be on the water. You had to come up here. They were having people get out and then trek this whole section, right? Is that what the...
Yeah. And actually, so we
up.
left the TA, and we thought we were going to do that. Like, we left the TA, and they said we were going to do that.
That's right. They said, that's what we're going to do. You trek up, you get 26, you go to that blue dot, and you drop the blue one, and you drop your pack raft. Then you go back up to get the 27. Then you come all the way back to the blue dot. You put in your boat there, and you paddle down the river until you come to there was a portage that you had to take out after that.
Yeah. So when we got to that cross section, though, we were planning on, going across the river, getting out of the boat and trekking, when a volunteer or somebody from the race pulled us over and basically said, "No, you're no longer going to go trek. You're just going to go downriver." So that's when we learned that we had effectively been short course, and we were bummed, right? Because at that point it's like, well, dang, like, we made the cutoff, and now all of a sudden they're changing it because they don't want teams on the river at night. So we were disappointed, right, at the time, because we were like, we're short course, we can't catch those teams, and we thought all the teams were in front of us. That was the thing. We thought most of the teams were in front of us, and now there's no way to catch them,
Right. Well, and what you didn't know is that really only the top 25 teams had gotten that other section.
Yeah.
And that I think at this point, you probably were ahead of SETI. And I'll have to pull it up and look, but like, you guys were one of the first teams.
Yeah, we were one of the first teams
missing that 2 checkpoints.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
We
so,
knew there was two other teams because we saw them, team 61 and 40. We ended up beating both of them, but they were on
yeah,
the water with us.
Right
okay.
ahead of us, right, David? I think
Yeah,
they're
right
right
in
ahead.
front of us, and they didn't
Yeah.
even know about the portage. Like we told them, like, hey, you have to get out here and portage. I don't know what they were doing with their maps. They were gonna go like if we weren't there, they would have kept going. Like they didn't even know
Yeah, they're
about the
questioning.
portage. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
pretty
and
dangerous.
the thing is on the cutoffs, it like as you showed on the map, the river that was coming in from the northwest, there was
Yeah,
I think there was a flash flood or something like that. Like there was a storm that happened up there that caused that section of the river to be super burly. And they
yeah.
knew that we were going to be going in there at night. If we actually did the trek up and out, we would be doing it at night. And so they did it for safety reasons. It wasn't a short course option. It was they literally didn't want the teams on the water at night with the elevated water flow and all of that. And so I don't know. I
That's
just wanted to make sure for people that are watching, it wasn't because teams were going slow.
That's right.
Yeah, I think everyone knew that it was for safety and that they made that decision because the water was pretty rough. And I know, we've talked about it before that if there is a safety decision like that, there's nothing you can do about that, right? And everybody understands that. Of course, you're bummed that you didn't get to go see those two checkpoints, and but you can only do the course that they let you do. And so, how do you? I think this is a good place to talk about like that mental game, right? Because when you're thinking right now that you're in like 50th place. So, Andrea, tell me about like how do you stay engaged when you're like, shit, this is not where we want to be and we just got short coursed. How do
Well,
you keep going?
well, one, you're on the water and the water moves whether you want to or not. And it was a lot of fun. That water, the rapids were great. Like they were 2 and 3 rapids and they kept your attention. I mean, at the TA before that, I was a little bit in La La Land and I was the one who was showing the pictures that we had taken. And I was like hardly able to manage the GoPro, like remembering how to see the pictures and everything. So anyway, the water refreshed me, it cooled us off and, grabbed our attention. And, we've got enough experience that we know that it's never the end of the race until it's the end, like we just do our thing. And yeah, it got us down, but what are you going to do? I mean, you can be mad about it or you can just carry on. And we usually just carry on. And that's what we did. And we enjoyed the paddle section a lot, I thought.
Well, and you talked about something that we haven't touched about, but I think is a very unique thing for this race. Like those of us in North America, we're used to going out and there is a orange and white flag at every checkpoint, and that's what we're looking for. There's like a PVC pipe with a number on it, or like depends on where you're at. But this race, the clue sheet was pictures of churches and signs and cisterns and things like that that you needed to be in the right area. So was that more difficult or was it helpful to have that?
Well, I think it made it a little bit easier, as
It
far
was
as the
easy.
nav goes. Like we're
Okay.
looking for big things. We're not, going off trail at a certain bearing or anything like that. So that didn't necessarily play to our strengths, but it was
Yeah.
still, it's kind of cool. We worried a little bit about having enough batteries. We took pictures with both GoPros so that we had a backup. It wasn't actually until the end that we had only the slightest bit of a problem because at the end, there were like 3 or 4 points where there was actually a number card at the thing. And I didn't take pictures with the GoPro close enough, so they couldn't read the number on the really tiny GoPro screen. So it took both of our cameras to prove that we were at those numbers. But otherwise, it went fine. It just changed, I think, the navigation piece of things. So
And what sucked, I think, one is they didn't tell us that that was what was going to be how the race played out early enough. because I think teams would have planned on it. They would have trained on it. I feel like there were some teams that may have had to buy cameras while they were in country to do it because we
Well,
were
it's
all thinking that we're
mandatory
gonna.
gear. A camera is mandatory gear, so
Yes,
Well,
but
I did talk to Megan Natanosh said that Shelly borrowed her bigger digital camera because the one that they had they didn't think was going to take good enough pictures for what they needed for the race. So, I mean, I think if you're going to require that to be the way that you're getting the checkpoints, that should have been something that was very clearly
yes,
stated well in advance before you get to another country and another world, basically trying to make that happen.
yeah,
But
in country. That's my beef is that we showed up with tons of GoPro batteries and cameras because we film we film videos on every race we do.
yeah,
So we just got lucky that we had all these extra GoPros and batteries. But the average team doesn't carry all this crap with them. They carry a cell phone. And if you
yeah.
turn your cell phone and try to take photos every CP, I think the battery would go dead. So that wasn't fair. And then the other thing is that the all of the CPs, at least the ones that were outside the city, were these big structures like churches. So it definitely played into the novice advantage because those of us that are orienteers, like we want, like I want to go 250
Dense
meters into
woods,
the
yeah.
woods from an attack point that's obscure in the jungle to find a checkpoint. Meanwhile, everybody else is getting to do these churches and all that. And so I think a lot of the a lot of the teams that were trying to do well, that were skilled at navigation, complained that this race was too easy. This was a physical race. This was not an intellectual problem-solving race. There was one route. It was obvious. It was a matter of how fast can you go up and downhill was gave the advantage. But
Yeah,
either
and
way,
I think
it's good that there's races of all different things, but this
right.
one did not play to our skill set, which is complex navigation and deep bush.
Well, and I think Heidi talked a little bit about that in the pre-race, live that we did, where she talked about we're used to row gaining and being able to like have those trekking sections where the navigation is a premium, right? Like, and if you don't have good navigators on your team, you're going to lose hours of time. And we've seen that at past, I think, world championships where they have one big section of like orienteering that really played a difference in like how you did this. It wasn't until the last leg really where there was any kind of difference in legs from point to point or from TA to TA really. So you're right. I mean, it did seem like it was more about like who has the engine that can just go, and not who can think about what they need to do along the way. And I think each has its strengths. It'll be interesting to see how next year's race in BC is, but I would imagine there's probably going to be some orienteering if I had to guess. But yeah, I mean, so that's different. So you guys get done with that leg, and then you go into the next bike section that is going to be long, but like the bike section, was it nice to have the breakup of the ropes course kind of a few hours in?
Yeah.
And did you guys plan? Because in my in my coverage, I figured that you guys would try to get some sleep to where you would time it to get up and do 6 hours to get there at light. Did that play into this at all, or was that just pure luck?
Look.
It was like, yeah, we had no idea, I think, when the ropes were going to show up. I think
Yeah, we didn't know when the ropes were going to be on the mat. Like we got to that TA and we
Oh,
needed to sleep, like because we had we had been exhausted from the second leg. We had to jump on the water and we
right.
had fun in the water. Like as Andrea said, it was super fun. But when we got to that TA, it was just now getting dark. We just beat the darkness on the water, and we definitely needed to sleep. So that was the first priority. I think we slept for like 3 hours before we even looked at the maps. So we
Which is good. Give yourself that break, right? Like you need it.
yeah, Yeah. But we were glad that we got to do the ropes in the daytime. I think we got there right as the sun was coming
Yeah,
up.
it was the timing was perfect. But I'll
And it
tell
was
you,
funny because like at home, I'm thinking, oh, they're logistically taking a sleep. They're gonna wake up at midnight and they're gonna get there because it's like it's looking like 6 hours till they get there.
Yeah.
And then I wake up the next morning and I look like a genius because you guys got up right around midnight and started going that way and got there right before light. I was like, man, I just crushed that analysis. And now this was all luck. So now thanks a lot, David.
and I will tell you, I was feeling the after effects of the heat exhaustion, and my sleep wasn't as good as it could have been because other people were sleeping next to me and people were walking and the dogs were barking. And that next day was my turn to really drag ass. Like I was sucking. The beginning of that next leg, like they all took all my stuff. Caitlin, Andrea, Chip's towing me up the hill. I fell asleep on my bike. I crashed off the road as he's pulling me up the hill. And we're like, okay, we got to sleep for like 10 or 15 minutes, like for a little bit of safety stop. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, that was really tough for me. That next day, the ropes felt fun, but even in the ropes, I was exhausted. Like I got to the Jumar and I was like, ooh, I was feeling it. Like I was exhausted. I didn't really recover until I slept again that night, I think,
I
after
can
that
tell you
church.
were tired, David, because in both the video at TA2 and the video that Heidi got afterwards, you said like two words.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're done.
I was I
Because
was not prepared for that heat. I
she's like,
wasn't.
how was that? And you're like, hot. And I was like, oh, but listen,
Yeah.
I mean, you got to battle through that, and you did, and I mean, it just
Well,
shows.
thanks to the team. Like, I mean, it's a team sport and this
Yeah.
is an amazing team, but they helped me through my low point like perfectly. Like they all helped me through it. But it was tough for me.
Well,
I
and
feel
we've seen
like
some of the videos from the ropes. Talk about the ropes because was it as spectacular as the videos show?
it was super cool. And yeah, I also though wanted to say that we each had our turn not feeling great. I think I
I'm
didn't feel
sure.
great day two. David didn't feel great day through two, or I mean, I was on day one hurting on that first bike leg with all of the heat and the pushing the bike and ugh. And then David had a bad day, and then Caitlin had a bad day. I think Chip might be the only person who did not have a bad day.
I got
He
sleepy a bunch
was
of times.
he was really towing someone else's bike uphill a lot of the time. So yeah, it was definitely a
But
team effort this race. But the ropes, man, that was really cool. And it did make me feel for David though, because we did the rappel, so fun. We go through the water and Caitlin's leading the way through the canyon. Did a great job doing that. And there were a couple places where we didn't really want to get totally wet because it was pretty cold. So we're kind of like trying to stay as high as we could. And, it was really, really cool. But then David was the person who did the Jumar first. And I think he kind of showed all of us how important it is for the lengths to be just right.
Right.
Because I think maybe one of his arm tethers wasn't perfect. And I don't know, maybe you can talk about it, David, but as each next person went, I think we all started to understand even more how important it was that the lengths of the leg loops and the arm um, tethers needed to be really just right for it to have the optimal um, efficiency. So anyway,
Yeah. It was a combination of things. Like I was exhausted. My leg ones I think were off. But like I was like going up there and I was like, man, I'm gonna make it, but it's gonna take me a while to get up this thing. I was like, I'm gonna make it. Like I promise I'll make it, but that a minute.
Well, it's kind of
And
crazy
then
that in the race they only had two people from every team
yeah,
go down the
Well,
ropes
well,
course, but you guys had
yeah, we were. I mean, at that point, we were happy that we got short course because that's what allowed us to get to the ropes early enough so that all four of us could do the ropes. When we finished the rope section and went up top, they were already reducing only, each team to only two people. So we were one of the last teams that made it through that. So that made us happy at that point, that we were like, oh yeah, those 2 points that we missed, that was totally worth
Totally
it.
worth
So
being able
that
to
we
do the
could all
thing.
do the ropes.
Well, yeah, because Chip and I talked, me, Chip, and Andrea talked while you guys were still there. We were talking about like, how do you decide what two people go do that? Because like, I don't want to miss that, but I'm also like the biggest guy on the team, probably. So probably
Yeah.
not the guy that should be Jumaring. So like, I don't know.
I mean, and it from a standpoint that you don't want to miss it, but from a competitive standpoint, I don't think it was fair because now you get two people who get 4 hours of sleep,
Hmm.
you know? Like how is that fair to a team where they didn't get that? You know, two people on a team get 4 hours of sleep if they took it.
Yeah.
Like they could tow a lot of stuff, with that extra energy, and it's faster for
Yeah.
the other two people that go through,
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, it
right?
is.
at least 30
That's a big.
minutes climbing
At
up
least at
tomorrow.
least an hour, at least an hour
At least an
faster.
hour. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I
So
mean, it's interesting, but I don't. Uh, I mean, it would be interesting to see because you guys finished second place of the short course teams, right behind SETI, and I don't know if they got to that section
they
where
got to
you
there
guys did.
before us. They got
Okay,
there before us. So I mean,
it
it's
didn't matter. It was the same. Okay,
You know,
I mean,
it's interesting that you keep mentioning SETI. We never even
we
knew
didn't
that they
even
were
know about
only
them. They
like
didn't
30 minutes ahead of
exist.
us the entire race. We never knew that. They weren't even on our radar. Like there was other teams we were tracking that we were kind of leapfrogging with, but them,
yeah.
we never even saw them.
Nope.
Yeah.
Well, like VAC Ultra was the other team that you guys were yo-yoing with the entire time,
Yeah.
which was
Yeah.
Amanda's team. So, being from thisAbility and like having raced with you guys before and being American, like that had to be fun, a fun battle going back and forth. There had to be a lot of shit talking going on. Uh,
Well, I don't
No
think there
shit
was any,
talking.
yeah, there was no
Yeah.
shit talking,
Nothing.
but
okay.
there were times when we're like, oh, I wish a team would come along to keep us company. And then sometimes we're like, oh, we got to keep ahead of all the teams. But one time in particular on that, I think it was the first trek when it was in this jungle trek, the point was like, we kept thinking it's going to be around the next reentrant. Like I kept hearing, we're almost there, we're almost there, we're almost there. And we finally get to the point, which is like a shelter. So I'm, all set for taking a break. And then just a few minutes later, here comes back Ultra Sport. We're like,
We
oh,
gotta go.
Now they're gonna want to talk.
we're
We
racing,
don't
but
want.
I would really like to hang out with these people because they're nice, fun people. And but we had to go. So, in the long run, we try to stay competitive, and I guess
Yeah.
we did.
So there was no shit talking. It's like every time we crossed paths, we were friends because we knew at any moment they could pass us, we could pass them. And we were on the bus ride with them like for, 3 or 4 days before we even got to the race. And we raced with them. Not we did the bus ride with them in Africa and raced with against slash them in Africa.
Yeah.
So it's like we're just friends and
Yeah.
they
That's
pass
fun.
us and we pass them. It's not a big deal. We're all going to do the best we can. And
Yeah.
if any of them needed help, we would help them and they would help us. And so
Well,
there's
that's
no
adventure
shit
racing
talking, I don't
anyway, right?
think.
They
No,
made
there
us hustle, though. They made
it
us
made
hustle.
us hustle. Yeah.
So,
So it
There's
was
that, and
friendly.
you're talking shit in yourself to
Yes,
yourself
yes, yes.
about like why are we going back and forth with them? Damn it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
yeah. And I think, that's the fun part of adventure racing is that we're all really on the same team and everybody's out there together. There was a really cool story that I found out later in the race that these two there was an American that was on one of the teams from down there that was in the TA at the same time, but he was from North Carolina in the same town that Megan Natano is from, and her mom was like at her chiropractor, and the girl's like, "Oh yeah, that's my brother-in-law or something that's on this team." And then I look at the tracker, and they're both in the same TA, and I'm like, I wonder if they're talking right now about being from the same area in North Carolina. Now you're all the way across the world. You're in day like 4 of this adventure race across the world. And like, but then you have this common bond. And I think,
wow.
I mean, that's such a cool part of this, right? Like to be able to be in Ecuador after being, racing against them in previous races. And you guys were neck and neck with them the entire time.
Yep.
Yeah, it's been fun.
That second to last bike ride, you guys made some pretty good time on that. How did you feel? Because that took a while when you started almost getting down to the trek. And then I mean it seemed like there was a lot of nothing there because there was no real checkpoints.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
And
road, a lot of
is that's just dragging.
asphalt up and down, and yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
tiendas, like stores along the way that had ice cream and cokes, and we probably stopped way too many times.
And
I'm
Pollo
sure.
No,
Seco.
that's what makes
Oh
it
yes,
great though.
and I'm sure the dot watchers like stopping. Like, what are you doing?
It was so hard to tell because, that map is like it looks small when we're looking at the dot watching, right? It looks like this little circle, but it's really like you weren't really seeing it move much,
Yeah.
and you couldn't tell when you were stopping and when you were going. I could tell by looking at your personal tracker, little dots in the same time, like I could tell that you were in the same place. But the Adventure Enablers tracker doesn't do that. Um, so you guys get to that TA before the next big trek, and you guys got a good sleep there, right?
Yeah,
And was
we
that in
slept and we
anticipation
ate.
of the long
Yeah.
trek?
Right. Yeah, so we got to that TA, and actually that last bike leg, I actually had a bike wreck, so that kind of sucks
Oh
for
no.
me. Yeah, it was like toward the end of the bike, in the middle of the night, there's like tons of downhill. I mean, downhill, and the road's starting to get really rocky, and I hit a rock or something, and I crashed. So we had to stop, like Chip cleaned it out or whatever. We wrapped it up and we kept going. But at that point, I just wanted to be done with that bike. So, and then like we crossed the suspension bridge, and now you're like pushing your bike up this hill, and we're all tired. So, by the time we finally got to that TA, we were happy to be there. So yeah, we got to that TA. We knew there was going to be a big trek, but I think we were excited to be off the bikes. And that was a good stop for us. I think there were showers there. We slept. We went and got something to eat. Seco de pollo. I think we stopped 5 times or 6 times for seco de pollo. So that was a good. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Chip meant to buy a shot of tequila. He bought a bottle of tequila instead.
Oopsie.
Oops. Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
What is throw it in the bike?
Drink
box.
it.
That's what you're gonna
Drink
do.
it's what you're gonna do.
I think he's
You
the
give
only
shots
one.
to everybody. Everybody gets a shot.
Everybody's
Yeah, but that was a good recharge, I think, at that TA, and so yeah, it was a good recharge, and then when we set out on the trek, we were ready to go. So it was good.
Well, David mentioned a good point, and I'm glad he's back in here now. But David mentioned a point earlier about sleeping in the TAs, and like the TAs at a race like that, where there are so many teams. I mean, you've got 70 something teams and people going in and out. Like it's got to be loud. What
Yeah.
if you're trying to tell people at home like what they can do to block that out? Like, is there anything like earplugs? I mean, I know people will take earplugs and eye masks, and you try to go out. Maybe just a little headphone thing with white noise that you can like plug in for that time. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we just tried the best we can. I think Chip and Andrea and David might use earplugs. It's kind of a double-edged sword. Like the TAs aren't ideal to sleep in because it's really noisy. But on the other hand, you've got your full sleep kit there. You can change. You're a little more comfortable rather than going out and trying to sleep in a wet field or something like that,
Yeah.
so you got to kind of pick your poison there. But yeah, for the most part, you try to just stick earplugs or something noise canceling in your ears and hope that you're tired enough that you just pass out.
I got great pictures of you and Andrea sleeping.
So
Well, yeah, at that TA, we were so hot and tired, you just don't care.
Those were
So,
gold. I was like, those are the best pictures ever because
yeah.
it's so adventure racing, right? Like that is expedition where you're like, screw it. I am here, I am laying down, and I am
I
out.
know I'm out.
And
Exactly.
I don't care what's going on around me.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I'm down.
So
So, so that people understand, every little small Latin American town has like a outdoor gymnasium. It's kind of like a soccer field or a basketball field with a cover over it. So many of the TAs were in that type of environment. So it's open air with a cover. So, it's concrete though, and it's loud, and maybe there's bathrooms, maybe there's not. So in this specific situation, instead of sleeping at the TA where all the noise is, the community had come together and created, I think it was a church that had like a little space. So we could go up and we could they actually laid some cardboard and some blankets and stuff down, like a couple mats, but basically I think the four of us were able to have this one space away from the TA that we could sleep. I mean, there was like kids playing on the swing and dogs barking and all the stuff, but it wasn't a TA. But we were able, before going into the jungle trek, I think we got 2 or 3 hours of sleep, quality sleep. We had eaten some food, drank some tequila, everything was good in the world. And we were able to go into that trek
Oh boy.
a little more rested than most teams. Because if they chose to sleep at the TA, people are like, woohoo! Every time a team comes in, there's the jingling and the bells and people hollering and yeah. So I think we made some good decisions in regards to where to sleep, how long to sleep, and that gave us an advantage over teams that made worse decisions.
and so
My,
that last trek, that last trek, was that more jungle than the previous one? Because like now you're in a totally different kind of place, right? Um, and it seemed like it was pretty slow going, compared to even the last track, which obviously people are tired, but like, was it because it was thicker, harder to, continue to move forward?
All of the above.
Yeah, well, also that's where we had some trouble getting across a river. So, it's the middle of the night, and we had come across a river or stream with a nice covered bridge and come around the corner, and the route is supposed to take us directly across the stream, but it's dark, it's night, it's getting cold. And then when we got to the area where we were supposed to cross, there was another team or two there who seemed to have been scouting the area for a while. They had tried another trail for a while, and so it kind of skewed our perspective a little bit. But from what I saw, it was this rushing stream that was swollen because it had been raining, and I just thought, wow, we're supposed to cross that. Well, we can't do it right here. It's too big. And then once you cross that stream, it looked like a sheer rock wall. So
Hmm.
it's kind of the perspective of at nighttime, not seeing the depth perception that you might have during the daylight. So we did try to go up a small trail, to go up the river to see if there was a safer place to cross. And there didn't seem to be. And so we came back down, and then is that when it started pouring and we
that's when it
decided,
Pouring
started
rain.
pouring.
yeah,
Pouring rain.
so
Freezing cold rain.
Cold.
freezing. So I mean, we're just like, what are we going to do? And so we decided to regroup at that covered bridge and along with a couple of other teams. So we go to this bridge and we're like, okay, we're going to wait this storm out. And we pull out, just enough to keep warm, so we think, but the longer you sit still, the colder you get. But we brought out our space blankets, our bivy sacks, and we're laying on the bridge, and a couple of other teams are too. And um, we're thinking we're going to know when it stops raining, but we're on a bridge with rushing water. Like there's a waterfall. That's why there's a bridge there. So you can't hear the rain from the waterfall. So anyway, we're just kind of sleeping there, like wondering what we're going to do and when we're going to do it. And then another team comes by and passes everybody, and I don't think they come back. And then another team comes by and Chip realizes that they are wearing shorts and t-shirts. And we're like, wait, it must not be raining anymore because they don't look cold. So we rallied, we got up real quick and we followed them. I think it was Papacara. And they got to this water feature and just stomped right through it, right across it. And when they got to the other side, they went up the edge of the rock wall where there was like that's where the trail went. And it was obvious once they did it that that's what we're supposed to
That's
do.
pretty, so, yeah.
And yeah, so we crossed there and I don't know, David should take it from there because he was in the lead here and we actually got ahead of a team. But why don't you say what happened after
So,
we crossed?
so I looked back at this. We slept there for 2 hours.
Yeah, we spent 2 hours there.
Oh, we slept
2 hours.
It felt like
And we
10 minutes.
and we lost to SETI by 30 minutes. I mean, there's the race right there, right? Like if we had just walked across that river, we would have been. But also, I looked back and no teams got ahead of us while we were on the bridge. So those teams that came, when they got to the next water, the next we had to get to the next checkpoint and it was at this waterfall, but it was a little confusing. You had to go to the waterfall, get the checkpoint, then come back to a trail that was a little bit hidden and keep going. So we get to that waterfall pretty much the same time as these other teams, but they're like trying to cross these dangerous logs and stuff like that, thinking they have to go across the river. When I realized we don't have to go across this river, let's just go back. And then I was like calling like Chip, Andrew, and Caitlin, like, let's go. I was trying to say it quietly. I found the trail. I found the trail.
Right.
And so like I take off and we leave like three teams behind. And then there's like one or two teams that are like just ahead of us. And I'm like, let's hammer it. Like, let's catch these people. So we did. We put the hammer down after that, and we did catch those teams in front of us. And then Caitlin was in front, doing an amazing job leading. And then the trail kind of died, and we had our first uh, disagreement.
Ah,
Was it our
Before we
only
get to the
disagreement?
disagreement, I want to just ask one thing. So most teams have like a keyword or something that you say to get your attention when there's other teams around, like, hey, I've got a poop, or like something that makes you all go, okay, I'm going to turn around and look at you, but nobody else will, right? That's why you use you guys didn't have that?
We did it.
No, 'cause it wasn't like it's C to C when you're in the middle of the bush and everybody's running around. You're like, Caitlin, hey, or whatever. Snake, I think I saw a snake.
snake, snake.
It just doesn't work. But yeah, I mean, this was really weird for me. Like this race was one that, like my skill set was like I can be the Sherpa and carry stuff and tow people and do all that. And David really picked up a lot of the nav and like again, I was if you're carrying stuff and you're towing stuff and you're trying to be the Sherpa, your brain's fried, your heart rate's higher, and you make bad decisions. And so David like saved the day multiple times of me making bad decisions.
Is this by chance
That looks like it.
Yeah, so that those tracks are a little bit wrong. Obviously, we didn't go on the other side of that river, like those
right?
blue zigzags. And what's also not on this map is the other river, which is surprising. But there was another river that had a bridge over it a little bit to the right
Okay.
of those zigzag tracks that we went back to. It's weird. It's not, like I said, this is not what was in reality when we were there.
Well, and it's funny because I actually noted that this was the only bobble that I could really see from dot watching perspective from your race. And it was only because it's like back and forth. And obviously that's just I didn't know if this is a satellite abnormality or if this is really where you
This is
like
because we
where
were sleeping for 2 hours and this
Yeah.
moved around. That's all that was.
And also checkpoint 43 was at a waterfall, which is also there's no river on this map either, but like so it was a
oh
little
yeah.
bit different.
You
Uh
can't see there's nothing there. And even if I change it to like the satellite, you can't.
Can't tell.
I
oh
can't
wow.
wait to see our GoPro video from this because I'm pretty sure we filmed it and
Oh,
it will look really different.
but look, Doug, move over to the right a little bit. Now you can see that there are actually two rivers.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You
We
can
went
see there's two rivers. You can
Okay.
if you
see that we
zoom
tried
that
to go
one.
up the one river and it was the wrong river. We tried to
And
cross over.
No, no, to the right.
oh,
To the
here,
right.
here,
Yeah, yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah. That's where we slept over that little river there. That's not
Oh,
on the
wow.
map.
So
Yeah, no,
that's
it
what
shows a
got
little
people
fork right.
confused. There
There's
was,
a fork right here.
Yeah,
yep. So the bridge was as we came from the east, there was a covered bridge on the first reentrant, and then we tried
right
to go
there.
across the second reentrant. But with the storm, we're talking thunder and lightning and ice cold rain. Both rivers, both reentrants started to fill up with water, and it was super loud and it was super scary. We were cold. And yeah, it was one of them like, hey, we need sleep. Like, let's just sleep and wait this thing out.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense. But then two
So
hours
you did
later,
get
like, why are people walking by in short sleeve shirts? Like,
It was
doesn't make any sense.
And it was the funniest thing when we start to go, the other two teams at the other end of the bridge, maybe there was three at that point, they were all sleeping so close together on the bridge, like it was hard to get through them. We were like trying to tiptoe and not step on them and not fall as we like get off the bridge. It was hilarious, honestly.
You
So
don't want to
then,
wake
all
them
right, so
up.
let's talk about this disagreement that obviously you guys all, you're all, oh, I remember this. What happened?
So
Who wants to start this? Nobody wants to
I'll,
start
So
it.
I'll
I
say,
was so I
go
was
ahead.
leading, and it was a clearly defined trail. It was a tour. It's basically a tourist trail with two refugios on the way. So the trail is supposed to be clearly defined, and it was. It was clearly defined up until this point. And up until this point, we're kind of going up, and the trail starts petering out. And so I'm kind of like, oh, I don't really know where to go anymore. And meanwhile, there's like two teams like on our ass that like are like trying to catch us, that we've been doing a really good job of kind of holding them off. So we're trying not to slow down or go the wrong direction so that they'll catch us. So we're trying to find the trail, and so now David's looking at his map, Chip's looking at his map, trying to figure out where to go. And so David's thinking it's let's continue to go up, and then we'll catch the trail again. And then Chip's like, well, I think it's over here more. I think to the west, and kind of just going a different direction. And so Chip starts kind of going a different direction, and then David's kind of like, no, that's not the way. Meanwhile, we're watching teams like get closer and closer and closer to us. And so we're kind of like at a standstill here, right? Because we got the two navs with the two maps, and they're like, one's like this way, one's like it's this way, right? So we I think we kind of Andrea and I kind of stepped in a little bit, and Andrea was like, what direction are you going, Chip? And Chip's like, well, the compass is pointing this certain direction. And Andrew's like, well, not really. And so I think we finally decided that we were going to go David's direction, try that, because I think the teams were kind of looking like they were going that way too. And if it didn't work, we'd turn around and go Chip's way. So it did get a little tense there for a minute. And I think it was primarily because there was teams coming up on us, and we were trying to make the right decision, at the right time. I think if the teams weren't there, we would have taken a few more minutes to figure it out. But I think we ended up going the right way, and now we're with like two or three other teams. But it did get a little interesting there for a
Yeah,
minute.
I don't know what I yelled. I yelled something at Chip, like, "How far do you want to keep going this way?" or something like that. I definitely like lost it, and I yelled, and Andrea was like, "Let's calm down now," and I was like, "Oh shit, I really did something wrong now."
Leave it to me. But I
You
have to
got
say,
shamed by Andrea.
well, no, but just putting things in perspective. I mean, David called it a fight. I wouldn't have called it that. There's a little bit of a disagreement.
I said a
And,
disagreement.
oh, okay. But in a lot of races we've done, there comes a point where like we don't always agree. So usually it's between Caitlin and Chip. And and it's usually like, should we go for this point or not go for this point? Do we have enough time for this point or not? So, as these misunderstandings or, differences go, it was pretty mild. We got past it really quickly. And I think the only thing that convinced me that David was right is I pulled out my big compass. So I felt like, don't make me pull out my big compass because, the guys were working off of their wrist compasses, which were not declinated. And so my compass was declinated, And, I just felt like, okay, it's time to bring this thing out, even though I don't think I used it the whole race, just to see, was Chip really going the direction he thought he was going? And anyway, it all went fine. And I think you
Yeah.
guys got over it pretty quickly.
Yeah, there was no
Yeah.
fight. I
No, no.
on a trail. I wanted to rule the trail out. Is it going to go south or north? I just wanted to go down it maybe 100, 200 meters to figure out is it would just get us acclimated. Caitlin and I already went up the other direction and was like, there's no trail here. And then David, I don't know how he did it. He pulled this magic out of his ass and he said, let's go this way. And we followed like cow trails. Like this was not a trail. And he's like, let's just follow me. And we're walking up stuff. And the whole time I'm going, oh,
I feel it
This
behind me.
isn't it.
good.
I feel them behind me. They're like walking a little bit slow. Like, does David know where he's
It's
going? I don't think
terrible.
David knows where he's going.
This is not a trail. These are cow trails, but and maybe the other trail meandered around. I don't know, but somehow David got us onto the right trail, brute force, compass bearing, whatever, magic, hocus pocus, and saved the day. So congrats. Yeah.
On being
So-
right and Chip being
Yeah.
wrong.
I may have been right. I don't know. My trail may have meandered this
No,
direction. I don't know.
no.
But I want to go back
Yeah,
and
I'm just gonna say I think the vote is 3-0 or 3-1 against you.
Yeah.
So, but no, and then that trek, so we lost signal from the trackers for a lot of teams in this area, probably due to the dense situation. And then you guys had to go up and over one mountain before you finished, right? And you came down hard to the mountain. That last mountain, you went up a lot, right? Because I think there was another 15,000 feet of elevation gain on this trek as well.
Yeah, it was brutal, and this is when I bombed. So I kind of knew I wasn't intaking enough calories on the trek, and at that point, I just you just don't want to eat any of the food you brought, and so I knew I was going into a calorie deficit. I just didn't know how to fix it, right? And so I got there at the second half of that trek, and I was just moving so slow at that point. And yeah, we had to climb. I don't know, a long time, 2,000 feet, I think, at once. Just a long uphill slog towards the end of that trek. And it was rough going for me. I had to give up my entire pack. I think Chip took it. And even doing that, I was barely making it. But at the time, I thought the cutoff for the TA was 5 a.m. Okay, so it's kind of like, I don't know, it's late in the day, it's not quite night. So I'm thinking we needed to be at the TA by 5 a.m. the next morning. And yeah, I mean, I was in a really, really, really rough state. So at that point in time, it was like, just get me to the TA. So, the team did great. They picked up my slack. We did the long uphill slog, and it was a long way. So we get up over top of the mountain, and then it's a long way down into the town. And I'm really feeling sick now. But we get down into the town, and it's like late at night. It's like 10 or 11 at night. And David can talk about this, but we were all starving, right? Like I was feeling so bad. I needed like just real food to eat. Hadn't eaten anything in a long time. And then we get down there and everything's closed. And David, I'll let you talk about the security guard that you talked to.
So as you can see, as you come down this and like we're done with the Trek and Run road and we're walking down and there's a city down there, Sevilla de Oro. And it's so funny is we could see all the lights. And then because there's power outages, like all the lights disappeared. And I was like, oh crap, am I going the wrong way? Like I'm navving, like, did I take a wrong turn or whatever? Then I was like, oh no, the power's just out. So Caitlin's falling asleep and she's downplaying it. She was really sick. I mean, she was throwing up, like she was in rough shape. I was like, we need to get down here. Caitlin's falling asleep. Andrea has like taken her by the one arm and is like walking her down the aisle as she's falling asleep. And Chip also wasn't the spryest at that point either. He was also going off the rails. And this is one of the moments, okay, I'm just nabbing. I gotta get us here. Like, we'll make it. So we get into town and this guy shines a flashlight on me. Unfortunately, I speak some Spanish. It helped in this race to have someone who spoke some Spanish. And he like shines the light on me, and I was like, "Hey, is there a restaurant?" And he's like, "The restaurant's closed." I was like, "So no restaurant's open?" And he's like, "No, but I can call her and she can open it up." I was like, "Really? She'll cook right now?" He's like,
Yes.
"Yeah." He's like, "Just go to that door over there," and he shines the flashlight. And I was like, "Okay, team, we're going. They're gonna open the restaurant for us." I go knock on the door, and it's someone's house. And I was like, the guy over there said that you could open your restaurant. And he was like, hold on 1 second, closes the door. And right next to his house, he opens up this rolling metal door and it's the restaurant, like right next to his house. And like we come in there and we ordered everything. So like we have this. I was like, yes,
All of it.
A
All of
all
dozen
of it.
eggs scrambled in a pile.
Oh.
Yeah.
And so we're like thinking still that we have to go back up the other side to get to the TA. So we're just gonna eat real quick, go up. And I don't know who, but I think it was Andrew was like,
Andrew.
let's pull it out and see what the cutoff is. And instead of being a 5 a.m. cutoff, it was a 5 p.m. cutoff. And so we're like, oh, we got all
We're
the time
like
in the
back.
world. So then I
Get
was
a
like,
hotel.
I asked the guy, I was just thinking maybe we could sleep on the floor of the restaurant. I was like, do you know anywhere we could just like sleep for a little bit? And he's like, oh yeah, my friend owns a hotel down the road. I'll call him and tell him you're coming. You can just go there. And sure enough, we ate and then we went to the hotel. The guy's like $15 a person. I was like, done.
Done.
And just $15 a person into this hotel. There was already another team there.
And we
And
overslept.
Well, and
that
it's
was a deep sleep. We
you
overslept
guys
by an
slept
hour
for
and a
about
half,
4 hours there, right? Because
four and a
Yeah,
half.
four
I,
and a half.
that was where I was like, okay, they must have found a good place to sleep because I mean, at that point, I thought you were well ahead of where you wanted to be at this point in the race, knowing that you had only the last bike leg left. And so you knew you had plenty of time. And so I was like, maybe they're just getting a really good sleep to push this last like finish. And because nobody knows like the fact that Caitlin's been throwing up and everything else, and like trying to dig yourself out of that hole. We nobody knows what's happening. So it was I figured you'd found a place to sleep, but that story is absolutely amazing that these people in the middle of the night, just would open up their home restaurant to you and feed you and then find you a place to sleep, which is just, I mean, you don't that bed had to feel like it was worth $1 million.
I was so wrecked, and yeah, we needed it, and we only meant to stay there 3 hours. Of course, I was the timekeeper. So David finally gets us up and is like, I think we're late, and yeah, we were an hour and a half. So
Which I don't think that has ever happened in a race.
yeah,
Like, I don't think
we
we've
typically
ever
don't do
needed
that.
a backup timekeeper.
I
We,
know.
we might
Yeah,
in future races now, but
yeah,
you
yeah.
still
Caitlin
have
So
Only
normally
if
um,
she's
wakes
been
up.
sick for the last
The
12
alarm
hours.
tells her when to wake us up, but
yeah.
Caitlin's normally awake before the
Yeah,
alarm.
I'm usually pretty on it. But it was funny because we like jumped up and we're like grabbing Chip and getting them up. And we're making all this racket, and the team next to us comes out, and they had overslept.
They slept 7 hours.
They
Well,
slept 7 hours.
that's what happens when you sleep in a bed when you're not
It is.
expecting to
It's
sleep in
so
a bed,
dangerous.
right?
It's so
Oh yeah.
dangerous.
After
Well,
a
it's like they say
shower.
with a campfire, right? Like you go sit
Yeah,
down at a campfire and you expect to be there for 10 minutes. Next thing you know, it's an hour and a half, and you're like,
yeah,
I need to pull myself away from this. So same thing goes with a bed. So let that be a lesson to everybody.
yeah.
Only if you have an extra 12 hours
Oh, we did, thankfully.
than what you expected should you lay down and try to take a sleep in a bed.
Yeah. No, well, so thankfully we weren't trying to make any time cutoffs at that time. And then, we walked up to the TA, and it's getting daylight by that time. But it was good because it was good to recharge. We felt better, and we knew we only had one leg left, and we had plenty of time. We thought, to do the leg. So we were in a pretty good place mentally, I think, after that.
I'm trying to pull up this picture because this is one of my favorite pictures that I got from the race, and it just happened to be. I think this was. I don't remember which TA this was, but this was me and Chip FaceTiming when Andrew was in the TA, and I mean, you looked really tired in this picture, Chip. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I look tired. Yes. That was getting ready to go into the jungle trek.
Trek, yeah.
Right before I probably had a couple tequilas by then, and we're getting ready to go to bed or something.
He did buy a bottle of tequila.
Yeah. And the funniest part is Andrea, like Beckdash, like Lewis's wife, who is like the logistics person, was like, Chip, look at me. This is dangerous. This jungle trek is dangerous. You need to go in. You need to be ready. You can get through. And I'm like tying my shoe and saying, Chip, stop. Look at me. You got to understand how dangerous this is. And then at the end of her spiel, I was like, so you're saying I should put the bottle of tequila back in the bike box? Like I shouldn't take it with me, basically. And she just like, oh my God, what have you done? Yeah,
So,
these were good times.
well, so the good thing is at this TA, you guys blew through the TA because really you just had
Because
to
we
put
saw
the
Vac
bikes
Ultra
together.
Sports there.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yes, yes.
So they were firing you up and you just had to put your bikes together
Yeah, we just had to put the bikes together.
and
Yep.
you're in and out of that pretty quickly. But early on in that bike stage, it was steep. Like I'm gonna pull up now this section that I mean, it's bad when you have shading on a topo map, right? That like that just
Wow.
shows you like the steepness of this shading. And at this point, is it raining for you guys?
No.
Yeah. Okay. Um,
It's
and
beautiful though.
so what's interesting about this is most teams between 50, 51, and 52 went this way, right? They
Yeah,
came up the
that was the wrong way. We saw that later. We should have done the shortcut.
well, so then SETI, who I was watching them, and I'm gonna pull up their track just to show you. I'll have to zoom back in over here to what they did. Give me a second. Um, but they took a very different route,
Oh, whoa.
and
Wow.
they got up to the
Wow.
top, came down the hill, went
Holy cow.
around, and then just went up and got that, and then came back
Whoa.
down.
Wow.
So
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing.
That's
I don't
interesting.
know if it saved any time because, like, I think your time between 51 and 52, I'll have to look at it. Like, their times between 51 and 52, let's pull it up, was 6:22 to 10:12. So, like, 3 hours and 50 minutes, right?
Yeah.
You guys, it was only like an hour.
Yeah,
So,
and they missed out. They missed out on a lot of fun too.
Yeah, that was. I
I'm not
think the
gonna
race
lie.
director wanted us to ride those trails because it was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
yeah,
those were fun trails.
if you look here, it took you guys an hour, only an hour to get between
Oh,
those two
wow.
checkpoints.
Wow. Okay.
So that 4 hours that you guys slept, they ate it back up right there by taking
Yeah, they did
taking
that.
that time.
That's funny.
This was the only section of the race I think where people actually could take different routes, right? Like there was different routes between here, there was different
Yeah, but
routes.
from 51 to like if you zoom back into 51, there was a
Yeah,
little road. We saw it late, right
51.
there, to
Yep.
the right of 51, between 50 and 51.
Yep.
You see the little one right above Burren. No.
Oh, the little road here?
Yeah. No, not that one. A little bit to this. No, between 50. Go
Oh,
back.
50 and 51 right here.
Yeah. So you could have gone from 50 bushwhacked to this, not that road, a little bit south. Go
Oh,
this
oh, right here.
Yeah.
here.
That was the route we should have done.
Okay.
We should have bushwhacked to that road.
Instead of going all the way down here and all the way back around.
Yeah. We saw it late though.
Well, and it's hard. I mean, you're what at this point, 3.5, 4 days in, at probably 4 at this point. And you're at what point did it start raining for you guys?
I mean, the only rain we got was that downpour on the trek.
We didn't
Okay,
get rained
so
on the bike.
I will
we
say
didn't
that
get
a lot
rained
of
on.
people in this section later in the race got a lot of rain, and then that turned into mud, which
Yeah.
they were not even able to ride through. If you read Jesse from Awesome Sauce, his race report, he talked about the fact that like they would have to go 100 yards and then stick out all the mud and get everything out and then like try to go again and it
Yeah.
was muddy. Up in this section here is the other ropes course. What was that like?
Cool.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was super fun. Like I mean, unfortunately, we tried to hit that at daylight. I was dying, though. Chip was towing me at that point. So we didn't get to the ropes course until night. But it was super fun. I mean, it was. I think we were so exhausted at that point. It was tough. Like you could literally feel the exhaustion in your body as you're trying to pull yourself up on the ropes. But overall it was a neat experience. I think we enjoyed it.
Well, and I
It started out in a cave. Like we had to kind of make our way. It was a short section, but it was tight. Like we had to take our packs off to put the packs through the hole and kind of corkscrew around the little choke point and then come out through this hole in the ground. So, and that was pretty cool. We weren't really expecting that. And I thought that was pretty cool. And the ropes going up to the top, it was like a via ferrata, but the ropes were pretty far, the secure points were pretty far apart. So you still had to watch what you're doing because a fall, you wouldn't die, but a fall you'd end
yeah.
up injured, because you'd have to slide down that safety rope quite a ways. But it was super cool and it was dark, but you could see all the city lights, which was really cool. And of course, you could hear all the dogs, tons of
The
dogs in
barking
Ecuador,
competition.
and you could hear music. So
Yeah,
there was,
music.
at some point, it got kind of annoying because it was like some children's Christmas music.
In
You're
Spanish.
like, oh, huh. Anyway,
Okay.
But it was
neat
like
experience.
just like the Jumaring and the rappelling. It was kind of like one of the novelty of the races. I think it would have been great to be there in the daylight to see the views. And if you go back and watch the videos from the official race thing, like it was pretty amazing what we did. So I think the race director did a really good job by blending that into it, and it broke up the bike. Like you dropped your bike. There was restaurants there. We were able to have food and drinks and all that, and we ate ahead of time because we thought that they would close. And then we went and did the ropes, and we got back from the ropes, and then there is VAC Ultra Sports. Like, hey, here's our friends. Like, what's going on? Like, and they're getting ready to eat food, and they'd already done the course or whatever. So it was really really cool. It was kind of a highlight of the race, I think.
And then you guys now at this point at that I think right around there it's 9, 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then you guys are moving. And I want to personally thank you for waiting until I was up that morning to finish. Uh, because I wanted to be able to catch it and post it like as you were finishing. And when Heidi was able to catch you guys, like I think so I got up and I was actually down here riding on my bike. You guys inspired me to like start getting ready for C2C this year. But so I was riding my bike and I got the messages from Heidi and Andrea at the finish line. Um, and got to see that Chip had been crying for about 3 hours at that point and finishing the race.
We were all pretty emotional at that point, that last
Yeah.
bike in. It was such a hard race,
I was
and
going to ask, like, where did that set in? Was it after you got the last checkpoint?
I think it set it to me. I think it set in when we left the ropes. We left the ropes and we knew we didn't have that much longer. I mean, I thought actually at the time I thought we only had like 2 or 3 hours longer, but then they told us 5 hours. I was like, oh my God, 5 hours. But we just needed to finish. At that point, it's like I was still dying. I just needed to finish. But we knew we were close and we knew we were gonna get there, right? But like I think for all four of us, we were like, wow, like we've been on the course for 6 days, we've only got a few hours left. We had a pretty straightforward path to the finish line, and just reflecting on how tough the entire course had been, what we had been through. I think it just kind of emotionally overcame just about all of us during that bike ride, at that point. And it was a tough ride getting to the finish because we were tired, just physically tired, right? And it was in the middle of the night. We were low on caffeine. We barely had any caffeine left. But we didn't want to sleep. We wanted to finish. And so David, thank God, David was lucid enough to kind of take over. Chip was towing me and had all my weight. And it was great because I could kind of sleep while he towed me. Honestly.
I can feel it too. Like, oh my
Don't try this
God.
at home.
Yeah.
So Chip was telling me, so he couldn't deal with the nap. David took over. Andrew was just trying to keep the whole team together.
Then she started falling asleep, and I was like, "Oh boy!"
Yeah,
No,
we
we did
did.
have to stop one time.
Yeah,
But
that
at the
was
same
for me. That one 15 minutes, I was like, you guys, we gotta stop.
we were rough. I think all of us were rough except David.
Yeah.
The last night we were all rough. Chip was tired of towing me. All of us were just, we didn't have any more caffeine. So we were rough. I was throwing up as I'm biking, like let's just get to the finish. But
It was a tough crew that couple of hours there. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I was
rough.
like I could take like all my energy just to like, okay, stay awake, stay on the nav, like stay awake. Like it's amazing how much energy like that took to like
It does, the
mentally
mental
stay
aspect.
present.
Yeah.
It was just like I'm the only one who's awake. I gotta do this. Like,
He
and
literally
like we were
was.
out of caffeine. I had actually didn't take any caffeine. I gave it to everyone else on the team to try to keep them awake, but it didn't work. And like I was just like, okay, we gotta do this.
Well, they talk about we talk about the mental drain of navigation, right? And like it's not just you're moving forward, but now you're making sure your entire team is going where they need to go. And that weight, it weighs more than your pack, and so to be able to carry that for your team at that point in the race, like that's a huge, huge thing.
And I'm the newbie on the team, right? I've not done a race this big, and I'm like concerned. I was like, do we need to stop and sleep? I'm trying to think of all the things that they've told me of like, okay, we might need to do this, we might need to do this. So I'm trying to make the right decisions for the team as well, at that point. But
You did great.
thank
And then
you.
We just needed to finish at that point.
Yeah.
We just needed to get to the line.
When you guys make it there and Heidi woke up specifically for you guys, she was telling me, I hate them for being so late in the morning because now she's got to wake up. But you guys finish, and at what point do you realize like where you finished?
Wow.
I think
It is an hour or an hour and a half after we finished, I would imagine. We finally opened the cell phones and start talking. I mean, Ricky and his team was there, Seti was there, and they hugged us and everything. But then VAC Ultra Sports came in, and Eastwind came in, and I wanted to go up and cheer on Eastwind because we'd been friends with them, and I don't know. At that point,
It was hard to know because there were still some full course teams finishing too. So it was hard to know, but like about an hour after we finished, we realized, we probably were in the top 30 and that we had done a lot better than we thought we had, So, and I think we were just proud to finish, right? We were proud to finish full course, as much as we could. But I think when we realized, wow, we really did well, like top 30, I think we were pretty proud of what we had accomplished and our results as a team, because I think it was the best finish that we've had as a team in any, I think, ARWS race really, and then just the effort that we put forth, I think it was the best effort overall as a team that we put forth. So I think a couple hours after we finished, we kind of realized, hey, we did pretty well.
And I think what made me feel happy was that there was only one team above us who were not able to get those 2 points also.
2 points. Yeah.
So there was only one placement that we could have
in only 30 minutes.
Yeah. And honestly, that team, they are such a cool, nice team. Seti has Ricky Valles, I think is his last name. He's kind of like the Ron Eaglin of South America. He is the friendliest guy. Like we met him at the Huairasinchi in 2020. I think we saw him in Paraguay too, but just such a friendly guy. Every time you see him on the course, he wants to do a fist bump or a hug or just really nice people. So even that, I was kind of like, yeah, I could see how they beat us, and yeah, that's okay with me. But I was proud of
Well,
us.
and what's funny for me, like, like I have seen you guys develop and morph into this spectacular world championship caliber team over the last 2 years that I have been helping with dot watching, and I've seen your development and growth, and I've seen the battles both mentally and physically that is taken to get here. And I was so proud of what you guys did. Stop it, Andrea. I can see you already start. But I was so proud to see what you guys accomplished and know the road that it has taken to get here. And so I hope that you are as proud as all of us are that we're watching, that have been cheering on, that have been here to lift you up. And I hope that you felt that along the way. Um, David, I want to start with you since this was your first big race like this, and obviously first world championship with thisAbility. What did this race mean to you? And what will you take from this?
So I famously said in the beginning that I was like, oh, we can be top 20, right? Not, kind of foolishly not realizing the caliber of teams we're up against. I didn't know, never been. But when I finished that, I honestly, there was times during the race when I thought, oh, what place we're going to finish? What do this? We joked like we need to go to therapy because we need to figure out if we're going to be like a competitive team or we're just going to experience it or what kind of team we're going to be. Like we need therapy to figure this out. But when I finished it, I was like, this is the hardest thing I have ever done in my life. And I wouldn't have been able to do it with the team, but just like the fact of like we were able to do this, I was just so overwhelmed by like this was so incredibly hard. I was not thinking what place we came in or what. I was just thinking we did this. And I ripped open my phone, I called my wife, and I just started bawling because I was just like, I did it. Like I've trained for this and I found a great team that were able to do it together. And it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, but we actually accomplished it. And it was just overwhelming, the emotions I had from that. Yeah. And I wasn't even thinking about what place we were in.
No, and I
Even,
knew
yeah.
I knew none of you would be because literally, like, I mean, that's something that it doesn't matter, right? At the end of the day. I mean, it's nice to look back at for bragging rights, but at the end of the day, what really mattered was getting through the full course and finishing. And I know that that was goal number one. Um, Caitlin, you have done many of these. And what was your biggest takeaway from this, and how did this one feel different?
Yeah, so this is definitely the hardest race that I've ever done. I would say this was the hardest effort I think the team as a whole has put together. We were super steady on every leg, and you face everything, right? The elevation, the altitude, the heat. So you got a little bit of everything, but I was super proud of the team because we always had that forward momentum, right? And we stopped when we needed to. I think we still as a team need to figure out the nutrition thing that really bit me the last two legs. But overall, I was just super proud of just the overall effort that the entire team put into it. And then I felt like we really came together as a team when somebody was struggling all around to try to make them faster, right? And then in turn you make the team faster. So I really felt like we had an overall sense of shared responsibility for the entire team to come together to make us as fast as we could at that particular time. So yeah, just the super hard race. Really proud of the effort that the entire team put forth, and I think our final placing reflected that. And I said top 30 would be really good for us, and we ended up I think 28. So that was pretty cool to be able to say that yeah we got top 30 in the world. So really proud of that.
Well, and Chip and Andrea, I mean, this has been your baby, this team, and you guys have grown this, and your following and the people that are out here supporting you. And what does this race mean to you guys? And like I mean, you race all the time, but I know that this one will have felt different for you. So tell us what that was.
Well, I mean, I have a hard time putting it into words, really. I just think, who are we to be able to do these sorts of things? Like, just even if you'd said 10 years ago, this is what I would have accomplished by now, I'd be like, really? I don't think so. But yeah, we've done it. And yeah, it's so reliant on teamwork. I can't even tell you. Like, this is not just Chip and I's effort. This is our team. Like, it's as much Caitlin as David, as Chip, as all the people we've raced with before that have helped us learn about ourselves and what we need to do to be better. It's an amazing experience. So, what more do you
Yeah.
have to say?
I'll have to pair what Caitlin said. I think this was one of the most physically challenging races that we've ever done, between the heat and just the pushing the bikes uphill and the amount of weight we were carrying with the rock climbing stuff and the pack rafts. And um, it was really, really hard. And I think that's what I said when Heidi was like, "What's your one word for this race?" I think I said hard. It wasn't navigationally challenging, and I wish it was. So that's kind of I think we would have done a little bit better if there was some complex nav that we could have let our skill set shine. But this race was it was great from the standpoint of we were all very equal in our physical ability, I think. And like, yeah, we had our highs and lows and this and that, but it was like at each point somebody was the highlight and somebody was in the hurt locker, and we were able to, it was close enough together that we could rotate that around and the team could pull us through at a pretty quick pace, quicker than we normally would go. So I don't know. I think it's overall optimized performance. I think I'm very, very proud of what the team did this time. And as you look back at it, there's not too many things I would have done differently. Maybe stop a little longer and have some more rice and chicken from here to there. But you know,
It's funny because like I came from a triathlon world and doing Ironman and half Ironman races, and I used to have athletes ask me all the time. They're like, "Oh, like what does it feel like to put together a perfect race?" And I was like, "I have no idea." Because
Yeah.
I don't think I
Never
ever have, right? But it sounds to me that you guys got the most out of what you could get, and you put it all together. And I will say, like Caitlin said, the results speak for themselves. You guys are top 30 in the world at the World Championship race. It's a lot to be proud of. I was super proud of it. I was happy to be along for the ride. I hope that everybody at home enjoyed the dot watching perspective. I will be wanting to sit down with each of you and hear what you think about my perspective as well, because it helps me to be a better racer as well, just being able to think of those things mentally and trying to put myself in your shoes. And I look forward to being out on courses with you guys soon. Tell everybody what's next.
We are doing the Magnificent in New Zealand in January. So that'll be with Caitlin. David couldn't make it to this one. So Nick Herf is going to be our fourth for that race. That is right around the corner. So there are some things we need to prepare for. One of those
Stretch
things,
out the legs.
yeah, well, we need to
brake pads.
brake pad.
Yeah.
We need to put our bikes on our pack rafts for that race. So we need to
Oh,
practice
wow.
that. We need to practice carrying our bikes on our backs. Anyway, I think it's going to be another tough race. But you did a fabulous job. Thank you so much. I just really appreciate someone keeping an eye on us and someone that we can be thinking of like, oh, someone cares. And
It was fun to be able to see you guys on video. And, my wife was probably happy that the race was over because every minute I was like pulling up Chip's tracker to see exactly where you guys were. No, it was my pleasure. I will always be in your corner and be here to support you in any way that I can. Thank you everybody for watching AR Dot Watch. It was fun. So, and wait, you guys are gonna be at C2C too, right? Who's racing with you at
Yeah.
C2C?
Right now, I
We
think
don't
it's just
know.
Andrea and I. We don't know. We
Oh,
just
okay.
us. It might be a four-person. I don't know. It's like we're focused on New Zealand at this point, and then the C2C is after that.
Well,
All
and
right.
David should share how he is racing the C2C.
Uh, yes. Well, maybe. I don't want to. My daughter. I was gonna race it with my daughter.
Okay.
But she's now said that she's not 100% sure, and I don't want to like push her into it. So, we'll see. I might convince my brother to do it, trying to take
He'll
him.
be our third in the canoe, and
Or
we'll go
maybe
for the top
I'll do the
spot.
triple date with you.
Triple date.
Uh,
Yeah,
Be
do a
down there.
threesome.
Or maybe your brother needs to join our team. We've got
Well, no,
things to figure
he's
out.
brand new. My brother's brand new. He's not.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, no. He's
You
not.
should go
I'm just.
solo. You should go with us.
So it's undetermined what
All
my
right.
team will be at CC.
Yeah.
Well, I
And
look forward to
Caitlin
seeing you guys at
retired
C2C.
from the C2C after how many C2Cs?
Yeah, after like
Yeah, too many years. I'm done.
Okay. Anyway, we will see you there, Doug.
All right, I can't wait. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys at the next one.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thanks
Bye.
for
Thanks,
joining,
Doug.
everybody.
We hope you enjoyed this podcast. Please take a moment to leave a rating and a comment.
If you have a question for the next mailbag segment, call 757 354 4795 and leave us a voicemail or a text with your name, city you are calling from, and your question.
To find additional content, including the video versions of these discussions, you can search for thisAbility Racing on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
We hope this podcast inspired you to focus on your abilities and plan your next adventure.
See you on the trail.